Blog Talk Radio.
Does a monster roam the remote forest of North America? Some know it as Bigfoot. Others call it Sasquatch. Eyewitnesses describe a creature covered with hair, walking on two legs, towering over 8 feet tall, and sporting massive arms and shoulders. Join us as we examine the evidence, interview the eyewitnesses, and ponder the mystery on Sasquatch Watch Radio.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is January 21st, 2014, and we have snow here in Virginia. I haven't looked out lately, but I got home from work, I guess, probably about 5:30 this evening, and the roads around here are not too bad. They're a little slick. The secondary roads are slick. The main roads are all pretty well open when I came, but my understanding is the heavy snow has picked up out there, so might be looking a little different in the morning, so I'm not sure. But I would say I don't know. I mean, we may have gotten 3 inches in the grass, but like I say, it's not what I expected. They made it sound a lot worse than what we really have. So anyway, but that's beside the point. And so far, folks, my co-host is missing in action. I haven't seen him show up on the board yet this morning, so don't know where he's at. Missing in action. So hopefully he'll. Oh, I think he just popped in. Is that you, Creature Seeker?
It is me. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
I was getting a little worried. I was getting ready to send out the search team.
Well, we're getting a lot of snow up here in Boston, and when the snow clouds come around, you really gotta keep a watch on them that they don't clip your mirror. So
I didn't know snow could clip your mirror.
Well, the snow plows will clip your mirror.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the snow. I was like, well, I didn't know snow could clip a mirror.
No. Well, sometimes who knows? These guys are up 36 hours at a time. They're basically drinking Red Bull, for 36 hours. So they got a hard job, and I just, I'm sure it's easy to. There goes 5 or 6 mirrors,
Well, I have to admit, I've done that before. Pushing snow is really not that fun. I just never have cared for driving around in the dark, looking at white snow and plowing it. It just isn't my thing. So my hat's off to those guys that do that, because you think it's easy to do, but looking in your mirrors and looking over your back and staring left and right, it sounds easy, but believe me, your shoulders and your back are actually hurting when you get done.
When you have heavy snowfall too, Billy, usually when they finish, so they finish plowing, they have to go back and start again, because what they had plowed 24 hours ago is now, it's all snowed in again. So these guys are really, pulling major league shifts to get the roads cleared.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. I hear them out there scraping right now outside my window. So it's actually picking up here heavier than what it's been most of the day. We've had mostly just small flurries, but it seems to be picking up and getting some heavier stuff now. So.
Oh, so totally on another note, Billy, I meant to tell you. Remember at the last show I talked about that river in Argentina where 60 bathers were attacked by piranha?
Yeah.
In December. Remember that? So,
yeah.
It just made the news again. 10 more bathers got attacked by piranha in the same river.
Oh.
What are these people thinking, Billy? It couldn't happen to me? I mean, there were 60 people got chewed up last month, but, that was just a month ago. I mean, the piranha probably They probably moved on by now, right? What is he thinking?
I have no clue.
To our listeners, if you ever go to Argentina, do not swim in the Parana River. I kid you not. That's the name of the river, the Parana River. I think it's called the Parana River for a reason. What's that?
I said I'll definitely stay away from that.
Yeah, make sure you do, because apparently the Parana have not moved on.
No, they're still there, waiting on you to dip your toes in there.
They're waiting on the unwary travel agent to book that next vacation. So we have a pretty exciting show tonight, Billy. And, there's a lot of people out there who say, because I'm kind of a skeptic, they're like, oh, Bruce, you're not open-minded enough. But I actually got a pretty exciting guest tonight, and her name's Margie Kay. She is actually pretty versed in UFO. She's the ASD of the Missouri MUFON organization. She's the publisher of the Unexed News magazine. She's director of the Quest Investigation Group. So she does a lot with UFO stuff, but she was telling me that she has done a lot of work with cattle mutilations and Bigfoot sightings. So I was pretty excited to hear that. Not that I am happy when cattle get mutilated, but this is kind of like a new. I hadn't heard this before. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest tonight, Margie Kay. Margie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Now, Billy, Margie put in a full day at work and is staying late to do the show with us. Can you believe that?
I am very honored. I thank you for that, Margie.
No problem.
I'm the co-host of the show, Billy, and I don't even know if I would stay late to do the show,
Well, I mean, usually you're the one that holds us over another 30 minutes.
Well, yeah, I may be a little bit long-winded at times. But, so Margie told me that she has no snow down there in Missouri, but it is pretty cold. What's the temperature down there, Margie?
Well, I think it's about 3 degrees right now. It was first thing this morning, and temperature has dropped quite a bit. We've just had some really unusual long stretches of cold here, and I know you guys have too. At least we don't have the snow you've got.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, but I think the whole country is experiencing this deep freeze.
I should get a snowblower, but I'm too cheap to get a snowblower. So basically, I've allotted myself to one hernia per snow season, and I've already got my quota. So hopefully,
that's not good.
The snow won't be heavy this time.
Yeah, you better hope not.
Or hire someone with a snowblower.
Right.
Well, I could do that.
Yeah.
I hired these kids to shovel up my driveway, but it's a chore. You got to manage them. You're like, stop crying. It's only 10 degrees out. I'm yelling at them from my storm door, right? Like, you kids, stop goofing around. I know you're hungry.
You're a slave driver.
I know. So anyway, but so Margie, you're obviously you do a lot of stuff with the UFO. How did you get involved with Bigfoot?
Well, believe it or not, through UFOs. We started getting some sighting reports of Bigfoot from people who had UFO encounters, and they reported them to MUFON, and then I would get involved, and they'd say, oh, by the way, do you want to hear something else strange? And then I would hear the story, and it's the same way I got involved with cow mutilations. There would be a UFO sighting involved or strange lights involved, and they didn't know who to call to report anything. So I ended up getting all the reports, and so my field of interest has expanded quite a bit into these other realms because, as you know, I'm sure, when you get involved in anything strange, a lot of other things can be related as well. So we get involved in the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, cow mutilations. You can't really separate them. So I try to keep an open mind and just do my job as an investigator to try to get to the bottom of it and find out what it was.
Well, anytime that someone tells me, they've had a sighting that involves both a UFO and a Bigfoot, I kind of like, all right, well, maybe you should quit drinking. But
yeah, that would be the first thought. But a lot of these people are very credible witnesses. A lot of time there's actually evidence left behind, if not some film footage, and it's really hard to discount all of them. I'm sure there are some hoaxers out there, and I'm sure there are some things that can be explained. But, I'm running into about probably 50% of my investigations remain unexplained. Mm-hmm. And I've done quite a few. So probably over 600.
I mean, what do you think the connection is? Do you think that UFOs are dropping off Bigfoot?
Well, there are a lot of theories about that, and one of them is that Bigfoot is really an alien and they're coming here to visit. Another thought, and I'm leaning more towards this, is that it's an interdimensional creature.
Get out of here, Margie.
No, I'm serious.
Well, one of our friends, his name is Fred Suluga. He actually teaches a course on cryptozoology at this college in Pennsylvania. He and I battle like constantly over, I always say, when's the last time you saw Bigfoot warping into your dimension and stuff? But you really, you think that Bigfoot is interdimensional?
Well, the investigations I've done indicate that, in fact. For instance, there's a case that happened in the 1970s here near Rich Hill, Missouri, where a woman saw Bigfoot looking in her window, and she screamed for her husband, and the husband came in, and they both watched as the Bigfoot walked away, and they lived on in a rural area, and they the next morning they called a friend of theirs, and he brought his son along with him. Well, that son would become a deputy sheriff later, so he's the one who told me this story, so I believe it to be credible. And so he tells me that they found Bigfoot prints in the snow, and they followed the prints along a tree line for 1.5 miles. And then suddenly the prints just stopped. There was nothing else. They couldn't find a place where they went. It didn't jump a long way or anything like that. There were absolutely no other prints, and they just stopped in the middle of nowhere. Well, that is strange and unexplainable. I've heard cases from other investigators that, especially one, and you may know of this one, where a family saw a Bigfoot crossing a road, and he had a female and a child Bigfoot with him, and then they backed up, and as they backed up, it almost looked like some type of a veil or, some kind of strangeness in the air that was different. It was like shifting. As they backed up, they then disappeared from view, and they couldn't see him anymore. And it appeared to them as if they were backing up into a doorway of some type, and the doorway closed, and then they couldn't see him anymore. So that to me leads to the idea of an interdimensional being that comes and goes as it pleases, and would also explain why we don't find Bigfoot bodies or bones.
Well, couldn't it be that you don't find Bigfoot bodies or bones because, the nature is pretty efficient at, scavenging,
yes,
the carcasses of animals, and
sure is.
I think they did a study with a deer carcass, and within a week, the whole carcass had been scavenged by forced animals, and even the bones were scattered because I guess the squirrels or chipmunks like the calcium in the bones. So do porcupines, I'm told. So could that be like a more likely reason that we don't find bones? Or
I'm not a biologist or a Bigfoot expert by any stretch, but I've had to learn a lot. And one of the things that is a thought amongst the experts is that's the case, that there are a lot of things in nature that we never find. We know there are certain things out there like black bears and grizzlies, and yet people don't find their bones either. So, it's as of yet, like you said, unexplained, and I'm sure and I hope that someday we will have the answers to all of this. But it may never come.
Well, it's certainly a popular explanation. It's just, I think it's too easy of an explanation in my mind, but you can't take away the fact that these sighting reports exist. I have a good friend and colleague. His name's Brian Seach. He runs the Center for Cryptozoological Research out there in Pennsylvania, and he gets these sighting reports, and he says, well, that's what they report. That's what the eyewitness reports. So I don't know what to make of it,
Yep, I don't either, but it seems that these what I've noticed too is that these things seem to come in groups. We'll get a rash of UFO sightings or Bigfoot sightings and cow mutilations, and then there'll be months with barely anything, and then there'll be another group. And I've also noticed that there seems to be a 40-year cycle, at least in my state of Missouri. I'm starting to reach out now to other states, but just, for time reasons, I haven't been able to do too much of that. But in Missouri, we had a rash of Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings in the 1970s. This was covered by national news, especially the UFO stuff. Walter Cronkite covered it. There were scientists who went to investigate the Piedmont area in Missouri, which is the southern part of the state. And now we're having another rash of UFO and Bigfoot sightings again in this state 40 years later. So I really think there's a pattern, and I would, need to do more research on this, but it's interesting to think about, and I'm hoping other researchers will get involved in that.
The Bigfoot down in Missouri is he called Momo?
Well, yeah, in the 70s, the creature was called the Missouri Momo.
Okay.
Yes, that's true. Now we don't call it that so much; we just call it Bigfoot.
So even these days, Bigfoot in Missouri is getting better press.
Well, actually it is. There's a really strange thing that happened last year. There were two sightings on the same day, one in St. Joe and one in Grain Valley, and they're, an hour and a half drive from each other. I don't know how long it takes Bigfoot to get that far, and I don't even know that it was the same one. But these were both reported on the news. Now, I did not see it on the news myself, but I had a number of people tell me they saw it. And I know them all very well, and I believe them. And in both cases, you know how the news will do their report, and they may repeat it again, and they may also put it on the Internet, put most of their stories on the Internet, on their websites. Well, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing, and it was only on the news one time. So, how strange is that there were three witnesses involved, two in one spot and one in another, and, they report this, and it gets on one time, and then it's gone. So, I don't know who the witnesses are, so I can investigate it or, speak to them personally, and that's frustrating. I can just only hope that they'll come forward in some manner. But obviously there's a media blackout.
Yeah. Well, Missouri is kind of a strange state because I know that there's activity down there. The news just doesn't seem to filter up it seems very local if it is reported. With the exception of the rash of sightings we had like 40 years ago. But it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, that are people just not inclined to talk about their sightings down there, or
that does seem to be the case with all of the paranormal things I investigate in this state, especially as you go to the more southern half and the rural areas. People remember what happened to them in the 1970s when they reported things, and so, they were belittled and made fun of, and the news making jokes, and the police making jokes. I mean, I've heard all kinds of horror stories, and it seems to be, even just in the past few years, we had trouble with sheriffs making jokes on TV about, these very, very real cases. And so they're quiet, they button up. I have noticed, though, that they're a little more inclined to talk to me once they get the idea that I'm not going to do anything to hurt their reputation, and I'm taking it seriously. And we have other investigators that work with me and that are on our teams, and also with MUFON, that take everything very seriously. So people are opening up once they excuse me, they get online on the internet and they find out where to file a report. And that's the biggest thing, is people need to know where they can report things.
And is there a number, or is there a place so if we have a listener from Missouri who would like to report something to you, do you have a number or a website that they could go to?
Yeah, they can go to my website at margiekay.com. That's MargieKay.com. Or call my phone number, and this is my office number during the day, is 816-833-1602. And you can also shoot me an email from the website. I will investigate any big sightings anywhere in the country, not just the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. I just happen to live here, so I get most of my cases from here. But I have worked all across the country and into Canada and in the UK.
Hmm. Billy, did you have any questions for Margie?
Well, yeah, I've always been interested in Margie's profession, and I guess my question, I have heard of other Bigfoot researchers that have in the past used people who, I don't know, for lack of a better term, psychics, to help them locate Bigfoot. Have you ever done anything like that with a Bigfoot researcher?
Actually, I have done it on many different things. And in one case here in Missouri, a case which is my own case, I did remote viewing in order to find out if there were indeed any Bigfoots at this certain conservation area. Mm-hmm. And what I saw really kind of shocked me. The report was a male Bigfoot that the witness saw. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was looking for. But what I saw was him walking through the woods and then coming to a very, very large tree that had a hollowed-out part underneath it. And he went in and dropped down underneath the tree into this really low area, and there was a female Bigfoot and a child Bigfoot and standing next to her, and she was in some distress. It looked like she might have been giving birth. Mm-hmm. And the male was bringing her water and some food. So he was taking care of, a family. And this is something that I had never heard before. I just didn't have an idea about how they behaved in family groups. And it was a shock to see that. So I know what's out there, at least at this particular location, and it's a Bigfoot family. And it seems that the male goes out and does the hunting and stuff, and then brings things back to the family.
You know, it's interesting that you said that, Margie, because there are some researchers that claim that they believe that they do live underground, create large burrows, particularly like around riverbanks and things like that. And you know, knowing animals, you understand that most animals would never trap themselves in a situation where they don't have escape. So a lot of the researchers have tended to believe that they have not just one entrance, but there will be a second as well. So it's interesting that you said that, because one particular researcher I spoke to had mentioned that maybe, you know, it is something like under a tree, a stump, a large rock, or something like that, covering up another way in or out. So it's kind of interesting that you say that.
Yeah, that's interesting. As I said, I'm just learning about this, so I hadn't heard that before. That's another, piece of the pie. I'll put out there too that I'm willing, as a remote viewer, to assist researchers. I've done quite a bit of this, and some with some really big name researchers across the U.S. And it doesn't have to be current. It can be something that occurred in the past at any time. I can look back as far as you want.
Okay.
So, I am available for that. I just do it for the interest of doing it and to help out.
Okay. Very interesting.
Margie,
that's good to know.
What's the closest you've ever come to actually seeing a Bigfoot yourself, other than remote viewings?
Well, I would love to get close to a Bigfoot. The closest I've come is finding a print, and and feeling a presence in an area. And then we set up camera traps at this particular spot, and there were some unexplained lights that occurred in the video where there should have been no lights in the middle of nowhere. And nobody can explain what that is. I don't know if it might have been eye shine or if they were actually lights of some type. But that's that's the closest I've come. Now, I have been invited to go to Canada with some Native American friends of mine to an area where they know where Bigfoot is, and they've seen him many times. And I'm hoping to go up there this summer and see for myself.
You know what else, Billy, I find interesting about Margie's remote viewing is that apparently human males aren't the only ones who have to do chores around the house. So it's good to know that the Bigfoot men, they got to do their chores too. So
that's right. That's right.
That's just part of life.
Flycatch was listening to your recollection of the remote viewing that you had of the Bigfoot taking the water and stuff. His question was how exactly was the Bigfoot taking the water? Was he carrying it in some type of container?
Yeah, it was in a big leaf.
Okay.
It was a really big leaf, and there was water in it, and he just carefully brought that in and gave it to the female.
Okay, very interesting.
That is a big leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I don't know what type it was. But
I will have to tell you, Margie, that you've really gained the interest of one of our, and Bruce knows who I'm talking about, one of our listeners that's in the chat room, because some of the things that you're describing with the lights and stuff actually happens on a certain private property in the state of Virginia. There's a lot of orb activity in this area. I've actually witnessed it with my own eyes, and I can't explain it. We've had several investigators in the area that have also seen the strange lights, and she's convinced that all of that has something to do with Bigfoot.
Well, I am convinced that the orbs have a lot to do with a lot of things, Bigfoot among them. But they are also related to UFOs. And see, these orbs could be different things. They might not all be the same thing. I did a UFO investigation last summer, and we set up like 8 cameras at this property. And some of them were night vision. And on one of the night vision video cameras, we got a picture of a strange orb in the trees, and then when it was blown up, you could see a little tiny man sitting at a console inside this orb. And as plain as day, it was a little alien. And it was shocking. I mean, when you see something like that, it's you hear stories about it. So I just say to other researchers who get video and get stills of orbs, get that and blow it up as big as you can, and look at the detail inside of it, because you might be surprised at what you might see.
All right, Bruce, you got a homework assignment.
Well, what he's talking about is I was actually on this property during the day, Margie, and photographed an orb that was, that is not a dust particle or a water droplet. I've seen thousands of pictures of those. It was some sort of artifact. It wasn't a blemish on the lens, because it doesn't appear in the photographs before it, or the ones I took after it that same day. To this day, I have no idea what it is.
And it was daytime?
It was daytime. It was, I believe it was slightly overcast, wasn't it, Billy?
Yeah, it was slightly overcast. And the interesting part about this daytime orb is it seemed to have an energy where you could tell that it was moving in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looked like it was moving under intelligent control then?
Well, think of it like if you doused a tennis ball with gasoline and set it on fire, then threw it. That's kind of like what it looked like.
Just
okay.
A smaller version,
The smaller version, yeah.
Did you see that with the naked eye?
Anything. No.
I did not. I did not see it with the naked eye. In fact,
okay.
At the time I was taking photographs, I was just taking random photographs. We were at this property, and there are these historic ruins. And I was just taking, pictures of the foundations, and all the buildings were dilapidated and things were falling down. And I was just taking photographs of the foundations. And it wasn't until I got back and downloaded the photographs to my laptop, and I was going through them, and I thought, oh, well, that's kind of strange. And initially I thought, well, that's got to be a reflection of a beer can or something. And I did a couple of manipulations with it. I reversed the color, made it a negative. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't a reflection of anything. Mm-hmm. It looked like a ball of energy that was just emanating light. Really, really strange.
Okay. Well, sometimes I just accidentally remote view when someone's talking, telling me something, and I did on this. And I'm seeing that was a spirit, and that there are several spirits at that site.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I would say she's correct on that one.
Yeah, I'm really surprised actually how close. So, do you think that entity that was a spirit of a human that once lived on that property?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm seeing a picture of him as a human now, and he has a long beard. He built the site, built a cabin on the property a long, long time ago. There was also stone involved, so like a stone foundation, and then a cabin on top of it. He was an expert builder. He was from Norway or Sweden, in that area is what I'm getting. And he came here directly from there. And that was his property originally. So if you do some research and find out who the original owner was, you'll find out that this is your spirit.
Okay.
Really? Well,
very, very interesting.
she nailed some things like right on the head.
Yeah, I know she did.
That's actually pretty amazing. Like,
yeah.
It comes in handy when I do investigations. Let's put it like that.
Right.
Oh. You know what? I'm usually the skeptic, but Margie said some things that were absolutely true about that property that we're on.
Right.
I don't know what to make of it, Billy.
Well, someone that knows a lot about the property is saying that you were correct on every one of your answers. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe you won't be a skeptic anymore, huh?
I don't know, Margie. It'll take a lot more than that, perhaps.
Well, we'll see what we can do. You know, I do a lot of missing person and on homicide investigations for law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And, in fact, if I could only do that, that would be the thing I would do. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in law enforcement that don't want to get involved with, quote, psychics. I prefer to call myself a remote viewer because it doesn't sound so woo-woo, you know. But there are a lot of people that have this ability, and it's too bad that most people aren't real open-minded to it because it could do a lot of good.
Well, the U.S. government was actually, this is what I'm told, so this could be not true, but the U.S. government was supposedly working on some remote viewing, and then they abandoned that project. Do you know anything about that?
No, they didn't abandon it. They just call it a different name now, and they're still using remote viewers. I know several people who were in that program and have left it, but say it's still going on.
Yeah.
Huh.
You know, why wouldn't they use it when they know they can train anyone to do it? And it's a technique that was started by the Russians, so, you know, we thought we better get involved in it. And, it's still being done today.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that they do still incorporate that into their investigations. That's some interesting stuff, I have to say.
Yeah, it is, Margie. You were a lucky guest on all that stuff you said about the property.
Okay.
So
I'm also getting the color red about that property for some reason.
Red?
Mm-hmm. It's either a name or the actual color on the property with something.
Well, that's kind of strange because there was red brick there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that might be it.
The main house was red brick. So, and of course, the person's also saying that the stone that you were describing was a slave cabin.
Oh, okay.
So, like I say, you nailed it pretty good.
Yeah, she did.
Well, the original owner, was a mason. He was a very skilled craftsman, and he also knew woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get anything else, I'll email you.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Now, this cattle mutilation stuff, how did you make the connection between the Bigfoot and the cattle mutilation? Now, I'll just say that it seems, not a long stretch that if there was some sort of wild animal out there who, saw it was opportunistic, and they saw some cattle, that would be a fairly easy, conclusion to say that they would predate the cattle, But
sure.
I've not really heard of any cattle mutilations attributed to the Bigfoot.
Well, I worked this case in Missouri in Henry County, and this woman had a cow mutilation, and she told me that she'd had one a year earlier, and then within 9 days she had another one. So when she had the second one, I got out there immediately that day, along with another investigator, to look at the site. And while we were walking the site, the investigator I was with found this strange imprint in a cow pie. It was very dry. The ground was hard. We were going through a dry spell, and there was, no moisture around. But in this cow pie was this smooth indentation, and we thought that was very strange. We took some photos of it, took some measurements, and kept that. And then at a conference, not long after that, paranormal conference, Scott Nelson was speaking. I know you know who he is, the linguist.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some casts of Bigfoot, and this other investigator said, Margie, you need to get over here and take a look at this. And he didn't say anything. I just looked at the cast, and I looked at him, and I go, oh, my God. So we made a connection to that imprint we saw, and it looked like an imprint of a Bigfoot without the toes. The toes, weren't in it. They would have gone beyond it, but because the ground was hard beyond that, they didn't go into the an area where they would have imprinted. So here we have this measurement of like about 8.5 wide by about 13.5 inches long without the toes. So if you add the toes on, 15, 16 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I really started to think that the stories I heard at other times where when there's a cow mutilation, there could be Bigfoot involved nearby. And another investigator told me that they theorized that Bigfoot sharpens their nails to points to really, really fine, very, very, very sharp and very tough nails. And that they may actually cut open their prey with these sharp nails that makes it look like a very smooth opening. And this was their explanation for the cow mutilations, that Bigfoot is doing this and just taking certain parts that they like and, carving them out very carefully. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm trying to keep open mind about all of the different theories there are. The only part of this that really cannot be explained by a Bigfoot doing this or any other animal doing it is that the cuts were very, very precise, like laser cuts, and there's absolutely no blood on the site. No blood in the cow. All the blood was gone out of the inside of the cow, and there was nothing on the ground around it. And it appeared as if something had lassoed the legs of the animal and had lifted it. And if this is the case, it was taken somewhere and the mutilation done and the blood taken out, and then it was dropped back on this in a different spot. And I believe that theory is correct, at least in this case. But the fact that we found that print there is, it's just very odd.
It is odd.
Yeah, it is.
Have you had any eyewitnesses come forward and say that they witnessed any, cattle being preyed upon by Bigfoot?
No. I've only heard it secondhand from investigators. I haven't spoken to any witnesses that have said that. No.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope they would. I would like to hear that if that's the case.
What do you think that these creatures are? So you have let's say that you have a sense of what these creatures are because you're connected to them, telepathically or whatever. I mean, what do you, in your opinion, are these animals? Are these, are they apes or are they more human?
I believe they're more human. I get the feeling that they're very intelligent. They're more intelligent than most people probably give them credit for. And I believe Scott Nelson when he says that they have a language.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the tapes, and it truly does sound like a language, like they're speaking to each other, and the family groups are speaking to each other. So, they're very elusive. They're intelligent enough to do that. they, for the most part, stay away from humans, and who can blame them for that?
Right. Here's the thing with the remote viewing part. I have tried on a number of occasions to remote view other Bigfoot and actually communicate with them, but I haven't had any success at that. And that tells me that there's much more awareness going on, and a higher sense, and maybe perhaps higher intelligence than even we have when it comes to telepathic communication. Because perhaps if they, I don't know how much you know about this, but if somebody wants to block you, if they are aware enough to be able to do this, they can actually block you from seeing anything. And I believe that may be the case here. It's funny that you mentioned that, Margie. Right before I came up to the show, we were kind of discussing that subject downstairs, me and my wife, and I told my wife the same thing, that you can actually block, certain people can actually block a viewing if you,
oh yes,
know how to do it. So,
and
I've always had an open mind about this kind of thing, simply because when I was younger and growing up, I hate to admit it now, but I really got involved with the occult and did a lot of things probably shouldn't have done. But regardless of the fact, I have witch backgrounds on both sides of my family. And my entire family, my mother, my grandmother, all have a really strange background when it comes to like witchcraft and all types of different things. So I've studied on the subject a lot, and it's something that I used to kind of tinker with. But some of the things that I experienced when I was younger made me not want to do it anymore.
Yeah, well, I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I was searching at a young age for answers and I wasn't getting them from my parents, I did a lot of research on a lot of subjects, and that was one of them as well.
Yeah.
So, there's good involved in that too.
Right.
I think as you age, you come to realize that you have a responsibility when you have certain abilities, such as remote viewing or psychic work. And some people have more than that. Some people, are telekinetic.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you learn that you've got to make a choice what road you're going to go down and be responsible.
Oh.
Well, I'm going to mention something on the show tonight that I have never mentioned to anybody before. Back a couple of weeks ago, I literally came home from work, and for whatever reason, that whole day at work, I felt like something really bad was going to happen. I can't explain it other than for the whole day, I felt like I was in some type of dire situation, like a heavy, bad feeling. And I literally came home that afternoon, looked straight at my wife, looked at my oldest son, and and believe me, when I tell you what happened, you're going to understand what I'm saying. I told both of them, I said, I don't know what, but something bad is going to happen. I didn't know what. I just knew that it was something either in the world, something here, whatever. I just had this feeling that something bad was going to happen. The very next day, I almost lost my middle son. We had to take him to the hospital, and he almost died in my arms. This happened about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And both my wife, well, my oldest son wasn't there, but my wife, when I looked at her and I said, "Do you remember what I said yesterday?" And she said, "Oh, I was already thinking about that." So,
oh, my goodness, is he okay?
He's fine now. He's fine, but he literally went into a seizure as soon as we took him out of the vehicle. We were at the hospital. He seized, stiff, turned purple, completely quit breathing. Got him on the stretcher and got him into the hospital, and they got him stabilized. So, yeah, it was a very scary situation. But the fact remains that the day before, the feelings that I had, I knew, and I even told my wife, I said, one of these days I would love to learn how to harness that, learn how to really know, was there a way I could have known what was going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. I have a feeling that you have inherited some abilities that have not been fully honed, but you have the capability of using it and honing it. So, yeah, I'll send you an email with some suggestions.
Okay.
I've written a couple of books, and there are some things in there. In Gateway to the Dead, A Ghost Hunter's Field Guide, that one has a lot of information about how to tune up your own psychic abilities and open your third eye.
Okay.
And if you'll do that, I'm sure that it will work for you.
I will definitely check it out. Okay.
I'm afraid of what else one that I opened,
I'll get you, Bruce. I'll get you. No.
Margie, if you go to Salem, you will see, and this is the honest God's truth, you'll see the name of Billy's, one of his ancestors who was burned at the stake for being a witch.
One of my ancestors was burned at the stake, Rebecca Nurse.
Oh, yes. I'm familiar with that.
And her sister.
Oh, yeah.
Who was your ancestor?
John Willard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, now apparently, as history goes, he wasn't really a witch, but he was accused. So they, the history lesson is that apparently he was killed for no reason, that he really wasn't a witch. Now, whether he was or not, I don't know.
Yeah, do you know something different, Margie?
Pardon me?
Do you know something different about whether John was a witch or not?
I'm looking at that, and yes, he was, but it wasn't something he talked about, and certainly at that time period, he would have been keeping that quiet. But he did have abilities. That's where you get it, Billy.
Yeah. Well, it's it's definitely something that I definitely would like to look into. So.
Yeah, since we don't have to be afraid of getting burned at the stake now, I guess we can be more open, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
No, the only burning at the stake that we get now is people's words and calling you names.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
All right.
I don't know, Billy. I burned a couple stakes before. Margie, can you tell me where Billy gets this insatiable urge to gorge himself with M&M sundaes?
Really?
Yeah. Does that come from John Willard as well?
M&M's didn't exist back then, Bruce.
I don't think they did. They have ice cream back then? I don't know.
They must have.
Yeah, that's funny. See, if it's not something really important, I won't see it.
Yeah.
It has to have some emotion around it.
Exactly. See, Bruce, that wasn't important, see. So there you go.
So I cannot I can't give you the answer to that.
All right, well, if you could, Margie, I'm sure that somewhere in there, John Willard was like stuffing himself with those M&M sundaes. He wasn't talking about that either.
It may have come from another side of the family.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right. All right, before we get in trouble. Allie had a she's got an interesting question. She wants me to ask you, Margie, what do you feel about Bigfoot's ability to immobilize humans through EMF or telekinetic?
Yeah, I have heard reports of that as well, where the person is involved in an activity, they see a Bigfoot, they are like frozen in time, and then when they come out of it, the Bigfoot is gone, and they realize that something has happened, but they don't know what. So again, we're talking about some type of a being that has supernatural abilities and telepathic abilities, not unlike the reports of alien abductions, where the same sort of thing happens. And you have blocks of missing time. You have very hazy memories. Very just clips here and there of things that happened. And unless you go under regression, which may be an option for somebody that's had this happen, you might get more information that way. But
Margie, isn't it possible that that someone could just have been in shock? So they saw something extraordinary that they couldn't wrap their mind around. So a defense mechanism is that they just sort of froze. It's kind of that it's just a response to just something totally foreign. And could that be just more like psychological rather than external?
It could be. Sure. The mind has, some protective mechanisms and blocking things the mind is really good at blocking things out. Mm-hmm. If it can't deal with something, it blocks it out. And, any psychiatrist or licensed health professional can tell you that they deal with that every day, and they bring memories out. The person will remember as they're able to deal with it. But it has to be a slow process. That's certainly possible as well. But I do believe that they do have some telepathic abilities.
Now, do you think it's possible that those abilities could cause someone to have a seizure?
There are some highly trained people who do have the ability to do things like that. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. However, I don't believe that the Bigfoots are that malevolent that they would do something like that. That would sound more like a human would do something like that, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people believe that Sasquatch use infrasound. Have you heard that as well?
Yes, I have heard that.
Yeah.
Now, Margie, do you think that, so you believe that these Bigfoot do have some sort of telepathic abilities. How do you think it is that there are so many trail cams out there that pretty much Bigfoot has been so successful at avoiding those trail cams?
Yeah, because they know what they are.
Yeah.
Obviously. They know what they are and they avoid them. But then again, if it is an interdimensional creature, it's only going to come in and out for a short period of time to get whatever it needs, maybe foraging for food or investigating something on our side, so to speak, and then go back. We're not going to just see them walking around everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
We're like this case with the prints in the snow, and they stop in the middle of nowhere. I've heard other cases of prints in very damp ground, and they stop in the middle of nowhere.
Well, so Fred Saluga brings that up all the time during his presentations about, but I say to him, Fred, all you can say is that what you observed, and that is, or what the eyewitness observed, and that is, they saw the footprints, and the footprints stopped. Now, it's highly unusual that there would, that they would stop like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they slipped into another dimension.
No, but where did it go? Did it hop on a UFO? Where is it?
Yeah. No, that's a good question.
Did it climb a tree and start moving tree to tree? I've had researchers tell me another thing, that when a Bigfoot researcher goes into the woods, they're looking down and around at the ground. Do you ever think to look up? It's a good point,
Yeah, that is a good point.
So
absolutely.
Have you worked on any recent interesting cases, Margie, regarding Bigfoot?
Oh yes.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah. In the summer of 2012, a nurse who is involved with our Kansas City MUFON group told me that her 26-year-old son told her he heard very strange sounds and calls of an animal he didn't recognize in the park. Now, this is right in the middle of Kansas City, Missouri. It's a huge, huge park with lots of woods and lakes and streams, okay? And he heard this loud, low, screeching sound for several minutes, and he's lived in the area for his entire life. He couldn't identify these sounds. So he told his mother about it, and she had suspected, but she didn't say anything. She just pulled up an internet site, and she played these recordings, and she didn't tell him what they were, and he said, "That's it. That is exactly what I heard." And what she pulled up was Bigfoot recordings. So this is 2012 in Kansas City. Now, in 2013, in April, we had people in Grain Valley, Missouri, and in St. Joseph's, Missouri, see the Bigfoot at the same time. This is one I mentioned earlier that was on the news. In St. Joe, this father and daughter were driving on I-29 highway as they drove home from a family gathering. It was about 11 p.m. at night. They were driving at about 55 miles an hour, and they saw a large 8-foot-tall creature crossing the road in front of them. They slowed down to avoid hitting it. The Bigfoot turned to look at them, and they could see red, shiny eyes. Then it continued to walk to the other side of the road and disappeared in thin air. This was mentioned on the local news channel once, but was not, wasn't talked about again. And this is a good one. You're going to love this story. In May of 2012, I got called to do a UFO investigation near, once again, Rich Hill, Missouri. This is a hot spot, okay, for paranormal UFOs. All kinds of very strange things going on in this area and some surrounding towns. But anyway, a hunter who's as a young man, he's in his early 30s. He was hunting, and his buddy was in a whole different area, so he's by himself in this one area across a clearing, and he was hiding in some tall grasses waiting for a deer to come out, and this was during bow hunting season. So he had his bow, kind of ready to go. He saw a Bigfoot come out of the tree line and just forage along some bushes and trees and taking leaves and things and eating them as he's walking along in this clearing, but right against the tree line. And the Bigfoot did not seem to notice him, and he walked back into the woods, and he went over a little hill or a little slope and then was out of sight. So the man went home, and he told his parents about this. Now, his parents are paranormal investigators, and they're in law enforcement. So they took their teammate, who was an older gentleman as well, who's an investigator, and they went to the site to do an all-night investigation. They got there before dark, and they measured one of the trees that was nearby where the man remembered the Bigfoot standing in front of, and they said, where did his head stop? And they measured to that point, and it was 8 feet. So now is where it gets very strange. During this nighttime investigation, the team took video with several different video cameras, and then they combined all this video together, and they showed this to me and another investigator. It was 40 minutes long. Now, during this, right towards the beginning of the video, you see these balls of light come out of the woods and go back in, and out of the woods and go back in. And pretty soon, there's lots of balls of light, and they're surrounding them. They're just everywhere, and they're showing up on all the video cameras, and they see them with the naked eye as well. They see about a third of them with the naked eye, and the rest only on the night vision cameras. And then they start noticing lights in the sky. So you hear them talking in the video, oh, that must be a plane. Do you know where that might be going? And then the plane stopped. And then another light just appeared. And then another one, until pretty soon there's this whole area in a circular pattern of lights in the sky. And they're blinking off and on. And what this team is explaining to me is that they believe that the lights are appearing in one place and then disappearing and appearing in another place. In other words, just instantaneously moving from one spot to another. But what I saw when I looked at this tape is a pattern of the lights reappearing in the same place. So they were actually blinking lights that were stationary, and instead of just individual lights in the sky, this was a gigantic UFO. And I mean huge. So why, in a place where Bigfoot was sighted, are these strange orbs and this gigantic UFO?
Bruce?
That's a good question. That's a good question. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and I don't know. The thing is, Margie, we get these sighting reports. My friend Brian gets them. People have mentioned them to me. What do you do with it? That's what they report. I don't know.
Well, first of all, the important thing is to report it. If it's a UFO sighting, report it to MUFON at MUFON.com so that investigators can look at this and help us figure out what's going on. At least, to date, after taking so many thousands of reports, there are patterns, and there are things that are repeated, and that helps people figure out what the phenomenon is. And maybe someday we'll know. And maybe someday we'll know why all of these strange things are connected. And maybe there is no separation. It could just be all one phenomena.
Yeah.
Some interesting stuff.
Billy, do we have any callers?
We got callers that are calling in to listen. I think some people are still saying that they're having some problems with the connections in the show, so some of them are calling in and listening in. So nobody's got their little hand up.
We had a question in the chat room, Margie, and it was in response to the trail cam question, and that is they wanted to know who may have told these Bigfoot what trail cams are and what they do. I mean, we get the impression that Bigfoot are they may be intelligent, but they're animals, right? So how would they have intimate knowledge of what trail cams are and what they do?
I don't think of them that way. I think they're much more intelligent than we give them credit for, and they just look strange to us. But who's to say that they haven't figured out that this is some form of technology they need to stay away from? I mean, it doesn't belong in the woods. If they see one, they know it doesn't belong there. It's something different. Maybe they don't know what it is, but they just stay away from it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've always described it in the past. It's like most of us probably know our homes good enough to where we can walk around it with the lights out because we know where everything's at. And that's the way I kind of look at it. These things, their home is the forest. And just like we can in our home, they know when something's new or something's out of place. That's the way I've always tried to look at it.
Yeah. Now, one of my witnesses, one of my cases, they did get a Bigfoot on a trail cam. It's in the distance, and it's very difficult to see, but you can tell that it's a bipedal creature that's walking, and it's very, very big and very hairy. And when the witness measured to the tree where the thing walked in front of, it was over 8 feet tall. So unless there was a human being in a gigantic monkey suit walking that then leaped over this huge little berm area and disappeared, that had to have been a Bigfoot.
Right. Right.
So and see, unfortunately, that was not an HD trail cam. So to anybody that's actually looking for anything, whether it's UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever, get an HD trail cam that has as long a distance as possible to get really good photos that can be blown up.
Yeah, some of the newer models are pretty great.
They are, yeah.
The megapixels have gotten better, and even the night vision distance has gotten better on a lot of them. So
it's incredible. I've got one that's only supposed to be 60 feet distance, and you can see easily 100 yards.
What kind do you have?
It's a Bushnell.
Bushnell, okay.
Yeah.
I know that the I think it's Reconyx is making one now that also has audio recording ability. So when it triggers, it also turns on the microphone so that it's recording audio as well. Stuff like that. Yeah, stuff like that is really neat. And then of course you have the ones that will work off of the cell tower also. If you have good signal, you can put a what do you call that? A card in it so that it dials up and you can actually watch it live.
Yeah, that is cool. I haven't tried that yet, but maybe someday when I retire, I'll have time to do that.
Yeah.
Margie, do you get the sense that this whole Bigfoot mystery will ever get solved? In other words, do you think that we'll finally have, evidence that will be able to withstand scientific scrutiny, that these creatures actually do exist? I mean, what's your sense of this? Are we any closer?
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, and I think they will let us know about themselves when we're ready to handle it as a human race. And that may not come for a while. Now, this guy who supposedly killed a Bigfoot and has it on tour, I don't know about that, but I just kind of feel like that's hogwash. I hope it is. I hope nobody killed one.
Well, let me tell you this, Margie. Okay, I don't have any abilities like you have, but I can tell you that it's hogwash. Okay, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't. He's going by an old. Do you remember the Minnesota Iceman?
Oh yeah.
It's pretty much the same premise. He's just got some probably taxidermied suit in a box that he's traveling around and letting people look at. It's a sideshow circus act basically.
And this would be his second hoax. I mean, he was involved in another big hoax.
Right.
Well, everybody's got his number then, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, most that have sense and remember what he's done in the past have his number. There's still a lot of newer folks that don't quite get it. So.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of just shooting a Bigfoot, and I've heard this before. I heard there was a guy in Seattle that shot one because he was afraid, and then he went back because he wanted to help it, and it was gone. It was a juvenile.
Right.
But here's, what are we doing? Our first reaction as humans is to shoot first and ask questions later because we're afraid. And so, why should they be involved with us when we can't deal with it?
Well, you know what, Margie? I talked about this on the last show, and we were talking about, would you shoot a Bigfoot? And I have this romantic notion because I'd hate to see them as a species. I hate to see them as a species die off. And I believe that, if there is a creature like this that does exist, that it should be protected by legislation. But the problem is that unless we get a body, it'll be difficult to move forward with a whole, protection, a legislative protection. And so I have this romantic notion that if we could produce one body, it would be worth it to save the entire species. So you're right. There are people out there they would shoot because they're afraid or whatever. But I guess, I don't know. If you told me, Bruce, you have a choice. You could shoot a Bigfoot and then save the species. What would you do? I don't know.
Well,
It's a question that.
Why not tranquilize it and capture it and study it and then release it?
Well,
that's another way.
But we don't even know how much of a tranquilizer to use on a creature like that.
Oh well.
I
suppose.
There would be.
There are experts that could figure that out by height and weight.
Well, look, if we could do it, that would be my first choice, Margie. I'll say that right now. That if we could capture one live, study it, and then release it, that would be my first option. The scenario the picture that I was painting for you was just a hypothetical. Yeah. And I've said this before. Like, I don't know that I could shoot one, but if you came to me and said, "All right, here's the scenario. If you produce a body, you could save the species. Would you shoot it?" And my answer would be, yeah, I would, because I want to save the species. But if I were out in the woods and I saw one, and it wasn't coming at me or something, and it was just minding its own business, I don't know that I could shoot it. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
That's one you won't know until it happens. But
right.
Again, I think that they are probably more aware of us being near them, and they avoid us in one way or another, whether it's interdimensional leap or just hiding. They can probably smell us coming from 5 miles away.
Yeah.
Before we've exhausted our hour.
And then some, Billy.
Oh yeah.
That's right. Before we go away, I'm not quite sure I understand Blue Tracker's question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. He says, ask Margie if this patterns of lights appear in the same place, same time. I'm not really sure what he means by that.
He may have been talking about the conservation area where the Bigfoot was, and we saw the patterns of light in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of them did blink on and off at the same time, and it was mostly in triangular patterns going around in a big circle.
Okay.
And that's how I noticed that this was an object, one large object rather than a lot of small ones.
Right.
But they stayed in the same location.
Right.
And then they gradually all one at a time went out, and there was nothing after 40 minutes.
Right.
And that is a really long UFO sighting, by the way.
Okay. Now, Margie, I assume you have Bruce's email. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Bruce, will you forward anything to me that Margie emails you? Because I would like to have your contact info, Margie, just in case I need to ask you something in the future.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll do that, yes.
No problem.
Be glad to.
Well, this has been a really interesting discussion we've been having, and Billy, am I cleared now? Because people said, "Oh, Bruce, you're such a skeptic." Am I cleared now? I brought Margie on the show, and she clearly believes some of the things that I don't know if I can accept, but I'm willing to listen to, So.
I don't know, Bruce. I think they're still going to see you as a big skeptic. So.
I know, Margie. I'm a skeptic. What can I say?
And that's okay. It's good to have skeptics. I have skeptics on my team, and
really?
that keeps us all grounded. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes us look for the mundane, normal, average, everyday reason first before we start looking for something paranormal.
Right. Well, we appreciate you being on the show. I actually really enjoyed speaking with you and hearing the stories.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much, guys. And can I mention my website one more time?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Sure can.
Anybody, wants to contact me for any reason, it's margiekay.com. And I've got my books on there and my conference places I'm speaking, and the magazine link is on there, too, for Onyx News.
Very good. Cool. Thank you so much, Margie. We really appreciate you being on the show and taking time out of your day to be with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Bruce, it looks like we've wrapped another one up.
Yep. It was a pretty interesting show. I would really love to sit down and talk with Margie, about these other things, UFOs and stuff like that. I've actually been out on some investigations regarding orbs and UFOs and things like that. So I'd love to spend some more time with Margie. So maybe we should get her back on the show again sometime, Billy.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think we should do that. I think that would be really, really fun. I had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And as you know, Billy, I'm a huge skeptic about this whole remote viewing thing, but she was right on the money with her observations. So that's kind of makes me think. It makes me think that maybe there's things up there that kind of
might be more. Yeah, might be more things out there that we need to consider. So.
Yeah, maybe we should bring her on board for the next expedition.
Yeah, there you go. Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, well, folks, a couple announcements. First of all, the Creature Weekend 2014 conference tickets went on sale today. I will say, Bruce, what is the status? I know that there's some tickets that's already been sold.
Yeah, so it's amazing because the tickets have only been on sale since early this morning or late last night. And we already sold out 20% of our VIP tickets. So within, it's not even been 24 hours yet. We sold like 20% of them. So all I can say is if you're interested in the VIP ticket or the Gold Pass, definitely order your tickets while they're available. And
get them quick.
And also, while they're available online, I just want to mention that they are discounted. So the price that you will pay for those tickets at the door will be a little bit higher. So they're available online, and they're available at a discounted price. So definitely take advantage of that while you can.
And the conference dates is May 16th, 17th, and 18th.
That's right. And we have some pretty cool things going on. So we have the dinner Friday night. We have a special presentation by Bill Munns. And Bill will be talking about the science of hoaxing and hoax detection. And considering all the hoaxes that have been going on this year, that'll be an interesting topic and timely, to say the least. Another thing that is kind of neat is that Dr. Meldrum has agreed to teach a class on evidence collection. Last year, he came out with this. It was like a field guide to Bigfoot evidence collection, and he'll be basically leading a class on evidence collection based off of, his field guide. So that would be really neat.
Yes.
And I don't know if we don't really have time to talk about it tonight, but we also have this thing that we've been sort of alluding to, but we haven't really talked about in very much detail, and that's the Creature Weekend experience. And that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be, especially a lot of fun for people who fancy themselves as really good Bigfoot researchers. So we'll see how good you are. Billy? Billy, you there?
So, you keep trying to get in shape, and it keeps not working. I'm Lacey Green, a super trainer with Body. That's BODI.com, and I've got a story you have to hear. I have a client who came to me because she was really frustrated that every gym or trainer she tried made her feel bad because she was a beginner. She had tried it all, and she just felt humiliated. And that's when we started working together, and I took her through my 3-week program called For Beginners Only. Once she realized that she wasn't the problem and that she just needed the right program, she started to get results. And now she's completely unstoppable and feeling so strong and confident. And I can do the same for you. On the Body app, subscribers lose 5 to 10 pounds consistently in their first month. And I bet you will too. In fact, CNN Underscore just named Body Best Fitness App. And right now, if you sign up for a 1-year Body membership, you'll get an instant $30 off. That saves 59%. Just go to Body.com. That's Body with an I.com. Again, that's BODI.com. Let's do this.
Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.